Bill Robertie's work on how to play the opening in backgammon is so comprehensive that he couldn't fit it into one book, and he actually has produced 3 volumes. We have just finished going through all of book 1, and we're now into book 2. And I was very struck in the introduction to book 2, which is called Everything Matters. Something that Bill Robertie said that I kind of possibly overlooked as I went through the last book, but it's this. I used to find it difficult as he was going through, the factors, deciding whether to make the 5-point or the 20-point, and he'd give 9, 10, 11 different factors. And I'm at a level in backgammon that I like simple rules, and I've tried to take all these factors and synthesize them into short and simple rules of thumb. I make these videos primarily as notes for me, and I'm delighted if anyone in Wicklow Backgammon Club or elsewhere benefits from them. But I'm trying to just kind of process all the information for my own sake. But it's very evident in the introduction to this book. Bill Robertie makes the point, the book is called Everything Matters. And his point is that, to play the opening well, you have to notice all the features and understand how they affect the position, not just kind of go simple rules of thumb. At my level in backgammon, I'm not a grandmaster. The rules of thumb are really very helpful, and I'm going to continue to make them. I'm still going to do my rules of thumb, but I just was interested in what Bill Robertie had to say about that. And obviously in all my slides, I will always give you in these videos all of Bill Robertie's factors and everything that he puts in there. But I will, for my own sake, just try and process them into kind of rules that I can follow. So the first chapter of this book is actually called chapter 6. So we've had 5 chapters in book 1. There's 15 chapters altogether in the series, and he does 5 chapters per book. And chapter 6, he looks at the 3-point and the 22-point. We've looked at the past some of the key points, the major points, the 5-point, the 20-point, and so on. And the 3-point and the 22-point aren't as significant. So I have to say that when I came into this chapter, I wasn't expecting much, and I was kind of hoping I might be able to fly through it. But of all the chapters and all the books I've read in backgammon, and I love reading backgammon books, I have to say this chapter 6 has to be one of the most enjoyable, most interesting, and most helpful chapters that I've studied. I sometimes worry that when I do these notes that I'm doing, an author out of a much needed book sale by kind of making a video about what's in the book. But no, you've got to get this book. I cannot do this book justice in a series of video notes. I've learned not so much in what I'm going to cover in this video, but in subsequent videos. I've learned so much about backgammon, not just about the opening, but about backgammon from these books. And I really feel, I was making notes and I was underlining sections. I think if you get yourself the book, you'd be gleaning other wisdoms. I've over the course of this chapter's videos, I'll be coming up with a number of Bill Robertie wisdoms, as I call them, just advice about backgammon that I didn't know. And I've been playing backgammon 5 or 6 years now. And the stuff in this book that I'd never come across and didn't realize, why certain formations were so significant. It's a marvelous chapter. But for that reason, I'm going to break it down into several sections. I originally planned to do one big, humongous, kind of 1 hour long video. But just for study's sake, it's better to have short videos. So this first video is just going to look at one section, the very first section of this chapter, where he contrasts making the 3-point versus making a split and down play. So the other interesting thing about the 3-point and the 22-point that I hadn't kind of realized before reading this chapter is that decisions involving the 5-point and the 20-point are usually very clear-cut. They're such powerful points. But the 3-point is a much weaker point. So making the 3-point versus something else, the 3-point is never going to be that far ahead of other good plays. Small factors can have a bit of an influence, so we need to look harder and make sure there isn't something that could swing us away from making the 3-point. If we have a choice between making the 5-point or some other reasonable play, the 5-point nearly always wins. But with the 3-point, it's such a weak point that it's much more of a toss-up. And so we just have to bear that in mind. And Builder Robertie breaks this chapter into 4 sections, and the first section looks at the 3-point and compares it to whether we make the 3-point or we do a split and down move. It's what I split at the back and bring one down from the midpoint. And there are a number of factors to bear in mind. We'll go for the 3-point if we'll definitely. Kenny kind of says that making the 3-point while hitting opponent's blot at the same time, it's so huge that it's usually going to outweigh all the other factors. If we can hit our opponent on the 3-point and then cover it, it's nearly always going to be the right thing to do. We sometimes make the 3-point if we've already made the 5-point or 4-point. Mark Olson, as I said before, makes this point as well, that if you can have a combination of at least 2 of your 3, 4, and 5-point, you're very strong in attack. And obviously, if you can make 3, 4, and 5-point, you've made the rack. It's even more devastating. You've made beyond the rack. It's extra powerful. So that if you can do that, very often you make the 3-point. You might make the 3-point because your opponent is kind of looming ominously, attacking their inner board. So if we split at the back, we're going to get hit. It's just too risky. We're going to get hit, so we don't split. We make the 3-point instead. And likewise, if our opponent is a stacked 6-point, they'd love to offload their 6-point. So if we leave them a couple of welcome targets by splitting, they're going to be delighted. So if our opponent has a stacked 6-point, we probably aren't going to split. If they don't have a home board and it's less of a factor, obviously. And finally, if splitting leaves it hard to play the second half of the roll well. So in other words, we can split at the back, but if our other roll, our other number doesn't play well, maybe it's just simpler just to make the 3-point. And then he also looks at when splitting is favoured. And these ones, very common. They kind of tie in with what Mitchie said when we looked at splitting with Mitchie's splitting rules. If our opponent has escaped a checker, well, if we split, we're more likely to hit them in the outfield. And similarly, if our opponent has a loose blot in the outfield, if we split, we're a better chance of hitting that blot and put them on. They're under pressure to safety that blot quickly. We know this from Mitchie. If our opponent, we split against a prime. If our opponent's starting to build a prime, we want to split against it. We know this from Mitchie. If our opponent has stripped 8 points, we're weak. One thing Mitchie didn't say that Bill Robertie says is if we have a stripped 8-point, we might, think about it. We only have 2 checkers in our 8-point and we roll a 5-3. Making the 3-point means we've broken our 8-point. So we might be better off to split at the back instead. If our opponent doesn't have a lot of builders threatening our inner board, well, splitting is probably the best to do it now. And likewise, Bill Robertie just notes, I didn't get this from Mitchie, that if our midpoint is stacked, if we load the checkers in our midpoint, splitting and the split and down play allows us to bring the checker down. So we'll split so we can bring the checkers down as well. Now, here's the first position he gives, and it's a good example of how he kind of weighs up his different factors. So he looks at the different factors in favour of playing the 8-3 and 6-3 and making our 3-point here. We could play in and make our 3-point. And he says, well, is this worth doing? Do we make a point in White's head? Do we hit a White blot here? No, we don't, so it doesn't apply. Have we made our 4-point or 5-point already? No, we haven't. Does our opponent have a good attacking position? Not particularly. Does our opponent have a big stack in their 6-point? Well, yes, they do, and that's one factor that I would say, well, we shouldn't split. That's the only factor that says we shouldn't split, but their board is weak, so that doesn't really matter as much. If we were to split with the 3 at the back, could we play the 5? Well, yes, we could. We could play 13-8. And in short, there's very little that says we should make the 3-point. But then if we consider whether we should split, well, has our opponent escaped the back checker? No. Have they left a loose block in the outfield? No. Are they starting to create a blocking position? Yes, they are. It's not great, but it's a start. So that favours splitting before it gets stronger. Has our opponent got a stripped 8-point? Yes, they have, which favours splitting. Have we got a stripped 8-point? Yes, we have, favours splitting. Does our opponent have a lot of builders? No, that favours splitting. So a few of the factors don't apply, but in general, the majority of factors favour splitting at the back. So we could play 8-3 and 6-3, but look at that block we've left in our 8-point. It's just weak, and we've done nothing to face into the block up the top there that black is beginning to make. So we put that back. The better move is to play split at the back. Everything's all the splitting rules from Mitchie as well say split at the back and then just bring one down with the 5. Incidentally, it's actually making the 3-point is only the third best play. We could put that back. The second best play is just to run the back checker. That's even that's better than making the 3-point. And clearly, the right move is the split and down play, because when you go through all Bill Robertie's factors and weigh up one against the other, it's very clear what we should do. Here's a similar position where we can go through the kind of checklist of factors. And in terms of whether we should make the 3-point, there's one factor which says we should, because if we were to play in from our 8-point and down from our 6-point and make our 3-point, we'd have our 3, 5, and 6-point. That's a very strong attacking position. That's one argument in favour of making the 3-point, but it's the only argument in favour of making the 3-point. And there's a lot of other features which favour splitting. So if you look at it, black has a blot on their 8-point. So if we split with the 3, we're targeting that and putting that blot under pressure. Black's under pressure to safety it. Black, more importantly for me, black is beginning to build an impressive blocking position, an impressive prime. And so we need to split before that prime gets any stronger. Our 8-point is stripped down the bottom there. So if we were to play in with 8 to 3, well, then we're going to break at that point and lose it. But if we could play the 5 down from the midpoint, it's a great opportunity to bring a spare onto our 8-point. And likewise, it's a great opportunity to unstack our midpoint. So there's one argument in favour of making the 3-point. There's at least 4 arguments in favour of the split and down play. And for that reason, the split and down play is clearly right. And even again, the running play is second. And look, it's right down 5th choice there, making the 3-point. And Bill Robertie makes a very interesting point here. He says, as beginners, sometimes we can be nervous about splitting at the back because it seems risky. But his point is, while splitting is a little risky now, it never gets easier. It's possibly one of the first of the Bill Robertie truisms over the course of this video. It's never going to get easier to split than it was there. So pretty soon splitting will really become too dangerous. So for that reason, the splitting was the right in that last move. Now in this move here, slightly different position here, and you look at it and say, well, look, if we made our 3-point here, playing 8 to 3 and 6 to 3, we'd have a pretty strong board. We'd have much the stronger board here, and that's surely good, and it is. But making the 3-point and making this a little bit stronger of a board is all it does. But if we were to do the split and down play, he notes that there's lots of good factors here. If we were to play the same, split with the 3 at the back and down the midpoint, we'd black has escaped that checker that's on our 11-point, that blot in the bottom left quadrant, and by splitting at the back, it gives us a better chance of making it awkward for them to make that safe. Black doesn't have any new builders. Their position is just the same as it was in the start. So they haven't done anything in attack, so it's a good time to split. Meanwhile, our 8-point is stripped again. It's only got the 2 checkers on it, which means if we were to play in with 8 to 3, we've broken that point. And meanwhile, our midpoint is stacked with the 5 checkers. And again, anytime we can unstack our midpoint, it's nearly always a good thing to do. So he kind of says you net out the pluses and the minuses, and it shows that the split and down play improves our position on both sides of the board, while it's just making the 3-point and builds our home board at the cost of leaving weaknesses scattered around the board. And so for that reason, once again, the split and down play is right. And don't forget, if we were comparing a split and down play to making the 5-point, the 5-point is such a powerful point, it's going to win. But when we're comparing it to the 3-point, the 3-point isn't that powerful, and that's why the split and down play kind of comes into action. But look what happens with this position. We started with a 4-2 and made our 4-point. Black has rolled double 5s and made their 3-point. Now we rolled our 5-3 as before. And now making the 3-point is correct. And it's not because we'll have the 3, the 4, and the 6 points, so therefore a strong attacking position. The fact is we're in an inferior position to black, and black has a strong blitzing position. And when they're blitzing, they want to hit us. So we do not want to split at the back, because we split at the back, we give them lovely little targets for them to hit. So for this reason, this time we are going to make the 3-point, just because it's not really the 3-point is that great. It's just that splitting is disastrous. And for that reason, as you can see, it's just a safety thing. We don't go near it. It's a blunder to split. It's third choice there. The final position in this section is a quirky one, and something I'm going to come back to in the next section, which is really interesting. Black has made their 20 point, our 5 point. So were we to make our 3 point here, you'd think you wouldn't make the 3 point here because you'd be thinking, look, we're burying 2 checkers behind Black's anchor. But the key to this position is that look up the top right quadrant. We talk about this. We're comparing the 3 point to a split and down play. We don't need a split and down play. We've already split, and having split our back checkers up the top right there, we've a checker on a 24 point, checker on a 23 point. It's incredibly powerful to have split like that, and I'm going to come back to this in the next section and show you why. So we don't need to split, and if we were to bring one of those checkers forward by 3, yes, we'd have greater outfield coverage, but it'd be absolutely crushing if Black were to hit us and make a point in our head, whereas they're kind of tucked away at the back there quite nicely. So for this reason, we do make the 3 point here, which would surprise me. It doesn't do anything dramatic in making the 3 point, but it doesn't waste our good position up in the top right, our split already. And for that reason, it's just a nice simple play. We make the 3 point and just wait for our chance to hit Black when we get a chance of it later on. So that's the end of our first section, and it really comes down to the 3 point not being that massive a point. It's more a case of, do we want to split or not? And sometimes splitting has the extra advantage of bringing the checker down, particularly 13 to 8. So the question is, do we want to split or not? And if we don't want to split, maybe making the 3 point is the right thing to do. As I said, I'm going to break this video into this chapter into multiple videos. It otherwise just becomes far too long. And it's really, there wasn't much in this section that it was interesting, but wasn't path breaking. But it's the next couple of sections that are absolutely wonderful in what Bill Robertie is teaching, and I'm going to make videos about them shortly.